Welcome back for another College TF review. Today we're taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Prime Universe Skyquake. I've been long awaiting this release and I'm super excited to have them in hand now. You can get yours over at All Time Toy Store. Check out the link in the description below. And as always, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out and keeps these reviews coming. So as you can see, I have them posed here as in Skyquake's demise. Bumblebee does destroy him in that episode of Transformers Prime. And we'll get into all those comparisons in a little while. And let's start out by looking at the box. Nice big box here from the Legacy collection. The Legacy Evolution artwork, very nicely done. All our cool spoilers up there. Really excited to get this guy at the top, and of course, Nemesis. There's the back, showing you a fusion gimmick. You can combine him with Needlenose. I'm probably not going to pick up Needlenose, but I believe that is a harken to the IDW comics, so that is a pretty neat feature. And there's the side, and all of your other words, and barcodes, and whatnot. You do get a very large instruction booklet. This guy is a fairly complex Transformer. He actually does remind me a lot of the first edition Transformers, and if this guy was released as a first edition, I think he would fit in pretty well with all those guys. And I'm definitely going to use my Skyquake with my Transformers Prime figures. And all the comparisons in this video will be centered around Transformers Prime First Edition figures. So take a look at that. But here is Skyquake. He comes packaged in his pretty awesome looking F-35 inspired jet mode. Very nice, with some extra Legacy stylization. I believe the 3 engines, that is accurate to Transformers Prime cartoon. He actually does stow away pretty nicely for a jet. You can see the only real gap there is right here. But otherwise, from all the other angles, it looks pretty good. Very, very similar to the jet that we see in the cartoon. So I liked how faithful they actually kept to the Transformers Prime design in this case, because it's pretty hard to beat those designs in terms of an anime stylized version of the Transformers we saw in that cartoon. Very nice red striping, lots of nice silver paint used on this guy, and some cool translucent orange plastic as well. Very cool, very large as well. So he does have landing gear on the bottom, so front one, and he also has rear landing gear, something that was absent on some of the newer jet Transformers, notably the Top Gun Maverick. But there we go. So he can sit on the ground, no problem. And then of course you can incorporate his weapon. So you can see everything stays away, and we'll get more into this accessory later once we get him in robot mode, but you have numerous ports all over the top, 2 on the top there, as well as 4 or 5 on the bottom. You could probably smack it in back here if you wanted to. Have it centered, something like that going on. Doesn't quite fit there, but you could do it on the side, or you could also put it maybe up front if you wanted to. Lots of different options for stowing the massive weapon. So that is his jet mode, and I think it looks pretty awesome. For some quick comparisons in his jet mode, here is first edition Starscream, who is supposed to be an F-16 inspired jet, and you can see very big difference in size, which is true of the real jets. Not quite this dramatic, but it's close. And definitely, I think once we get them in robot mode, you'll see they look pretty good together. So there is that comparison for those two. And then we do have Optimus Prime, of course, first edition. And he has a big rig, so he definitely is quite big. And then again, Starscream is a pretty small jet. And in general, with the jet Transformers, most of them, if they're a Voyager class, are too small to actually be to scale with the trucks. But it works out pretty well. I definitely like that comparison. And for one more, this is not a first edition figure, but it was a remold of it by APC Toys. Fantastic figure. And here is Soundwave. I think the coolest version of Soundwave, in my opinion. So there you get that size. He is a big drone, so I think they all fit in pretty well with one another. And then, of course, Bumblebee on top, destroying him from the sky. Now, again, the jet's supposed to be a good bit bigger to be actually to scale in jet mode. So I think, this is a little bit out of scale, but it still works. In my opinion, you can have Bumblebee ripping out Skyquake's guts. So definitely fun incorporation there. Set all these guys to the side. We get into transformation here. So this guy is fairly intricate, like I was saying, He does remind me of a lot of those first edition figures in terms of his complexity, but in a good way. It's not too overly complex. So to begin, of course, let's tuck in those landing gear, front and back. Then I like to come to the front, pull out the shoulder pads here, and then come to the back. And you just want to, we'll kind of finish up the legs now, so they're just out of the way. So you want to just detach the wing from the top of the leg there, like so, with just one big tab that goes into the leg. Nice sturdy connection. Then you just want to kind of pull out the leg, extend it all the way out, and then rotate around here at this joint, and then just fold down. And then rotate one more time so that now the leg is facing forward, as this is his rear. And then you just want to fold out the toe here, and you can pull out the wing. And so there's a little slot on the wing that goes into a tab right up there, folds in very nicely. And then when it was in jet mode, you do have that tab there that was slotted in right there. So that's how that all stores away. Repeat the same thing on the other side. So disengage from the wing, pull out the leg, rotate there. It's easier to do first sometimes. And then rotate that whole leg around on itself. Sometimes you do just kind of have to go in and grab that joint to actually rotate, as this guy does have really nice stiff, you can hear the ratchet joints and soft ratchet joints throughout. So he can hold his weight plus some, which is pretty awesome. Have him throwing Bumblebee or Optimus Prime, you know, he does beat them up pretty good in that episode before they eventually blow him to bits. Or I should say rip him to bits, I guess. So there you have the legs of Skyquake done. And if you wanted to, I'm sure you could try and finesse some sort of gear walk mode out of him, but I'm not going to do that here. Next, you just want to pull out the arms, pull them out, and then untab them, and just kind of T-pose them out to the side for now, like so. Then let's come to the top section here. We just want to kind of disengage everything. It should just kind of pop out like that, and then pull forward, and then come to the nose cone here. You just want to pull that forward, down, and you want to make sure that landing gear is tucked in, as we will need to kind of bend this all the way around. And now before we do anything else, this is probably where it gets the most complicated. So you want to go ahead and disengage the top section here. Just separate by the engine. There we go, like that. Make sure the wings are folded up a little bit so you have some clearance to work with. And now we want to rotate by 90 degrees at the waist. And we're going to, you can see these are on hinge, some little hinge joint there. And we need to just rotate them around like so to the back until they straighten out. And then at this point, this is where I like to do this step. So we need to just straighten this section so it's flat. Then we need to rotate this around and fold up the wing again. So now what was the top of the jet is back here. And so then just fold that all up, and so we can have enough space to do the other side. So same thing on this side, just rotate all this around. And then same thing, rotate this piece around, fold up that wing, and there you go. And then just want to splay these out to the side for now, so we have enough space when we get to that. So now you want to turn it back the way it was. As the waist, you don't need to do the full 360 waist rotation. Then collapse this part here. I don't actually collapse it all the way, because if you collapse it all the way some of the tabs work out, this is my only complaint with this guy. As you'll see in a minute, they don't quite tab in if you put it in all the way like that. So just leave it a little bit out. So now we want to, it's easier to keep these arms facing forward so you can bend these wings, have maximum clearance. Now you want to make sure these big, what will become the shoulder pads, are kind of hinged as far forward as you can get them. And you just want to take this whole assembly, and you can see we have kind of a tab, double-sided tab in there, and that goes into the nose cone there. So just slide that in like so, and again, leave a little bit of space here. Don't press that all the way down. As now, let's lift these big shoulder pads. Whoops. These little parts on the canards of the jet do tend to pop off a little easily, so just be mindful of that. I'm sure that's on purpose because they are slightly pointy, but they are rubbery plastic, so just, I'm sure, safety purposes. So you just want to, so you've got that tabbed in, and next we want to come here, and you can see there is a slot here, and there's a tab on this piece of the wing section, and so you just want to try and get that all lined up on both sides. This is the trickiest part of the transformation, as some of the clearances aren't quite right, at least on my copy, so it takes a little bit of maneuvering to get it all to seat correctly. And again, you might just want to lift that middle torso section up a little more until it all lines up as it should. So now you can see all tabbed in. We want to go ahead and we can bring the arms back in, and you want to make sure the wings are back like that. And bring the shoulders just slightly over for now, just so they're out of the way, because we do need to finish up the back section here. You want to come back here and just tab the wings back together using those same tabs that were in jet mode, but now it's just on the back. So everything holds together like that. And then for your final bit of transformation here, you just want to come to the arms. We can fold out the hands, and we do get nice covers for the insides of the forearms, like so. Snap that in place. And nice ratchet joints at the shoulders, as you may have heard earlier. Line up the shoulder pads, nice big shoulder pads. Same thing on this side. Pull out the fist. Pull out that cover and ratchet that down and pull over that shoulder pad. And here we have Skyquake in his jet mode. Sorry, not jet mode, we already did that. In his robot mode. Pretty nice looking robot mode indeed. Very reminiscent of that cartoon. Again, they stuck pretty faithful to that cartoon animation, I would say, in terms of his overall stylization, just with a little bit more maybe G1 boxiness to him, especially in the chest region, and then they redid the head a little bit. But I think he will fit in very nicely with Transformers Prime figures, as we'll take a look in a minute. And so again, just going back to my only complaint with him, this seems like it should push up a little bit further, but there's no more clearance to do so. And then these side wing pieces that are supposed to slot in up here do tend to kind of pop out. So that's just something to be mindful of. And you know, eventually you do the transformation enough times, you should get it to all line up. Just on camera here, it's definitely a little harder to do, but it does hold itself together. It's just not perfectly, it seems it's not quite tolerized correctly, that's all. And then that one downside is because it's lifted up a little bit here, you do have that slight gap, which, I mean, that's not that noticeable, but it does mean it's a little bit mobile, that's all. And if you wanted to, you could get a fake ab crunch out of him. If you do disengage this part, then he can crunch forward, but that does tend to mess everything else up in back, so certainly an option if you want to do so. And you do have lots of points of articulation at the wings, so you could bend these upwards if you want to whatever degree you would like. And then same thing with these fins. If you want them all the way up, you could have them all the way up, or you could just rest them on the backs of the wings like that. So with regards to other articulation, this guy is fantastic in terms of his articulation, like phenomenal, very nice job. So first up, you do have a ball joint at the head, like up and down, side to side. And then what's kind of interesting is there is like a slider joint here. So if you wanted to, you could pull his head forward, I guess. That looks a little bit funny for his head to not be lined up with his shoulders, but that is there. It's not part of transformation, at least that I can find. So just something that you can do if you want to. Then there's one other step in transformation here I always forget. He does have a double jointed elbow, so you can pull the arms down a little bit if you want them to be a little longer, like that, which definitely looks a little better. And then you do have 2 points of articulation at the elbows, which is pretty sick. So then you do at the shoulders, these shoulder pads can move however you want. Now, I think the best piece of articulation on this guy is he's got butterfly joints. So you can get his arm, I mean, that's not natural at all, but you can get lots of posability out of them. And that's for, of course, his cannon, which I'll show you in a minute. So lots of articulation there. And then you do have a nice ratchet joint there out of the shoulder. And I can, of course, rotate the full 360 like so. Then you do also have a very stiff joint at the upper bicep, full rotation there. And then, like I said, full double jointed elbow. So depending on how you manipulate it, you can get way past 90 there, which is fantastic. Then pull that shoulder pad back down. And then at the wrist, you do get in and out articulation. And of course, if you wanted to hinge inwards, you could disengage that panel, but I don't see a need to do that. Now, like I said, you could get a fake ab crunch out of him if you wanted to, but he does have full unhindered waist rotation, which is excellent. He can kick forward on some nice soft ratchets to there, and if you hinge his leg out to the side, you can get it kicking as far as you want, which is pretty awesome. And then similar idea in back, you can get kicking pretty far back there. And then move his arm out of the way. Nice splits. And then, like you saw in transformation, you do have this upper rotation here, which is very good. And then double jointed knee, again, part of transformation, so you can get really, really good kicks out of him, depending on which joints you use at which point in time, And then you do have a little bit of ankle rock. I wish it was a little bit more, but it is still there, so that's nice. And of course, you do have the toe articulation for transformation purposes. So that is Skyquake's articulation. Get him standing upright. This backpack is a little bit heavy, so you do kind of have to have him, you can get creative with his posing, but so then here is his big Gatling gun, very nicely sculpted. No paint or anything, but nicely sculpted. And then it does have this handle here that come out, just rotate it around. It is on a ball joint, which really helps with posing. And then before I give that to him, you can pull out this transparent piece of plastic here from the bottom, and that actually is his sword. A little nub there, flips out. You can give a Skyquake a sword. And this is keyed, so that you can see there is a ridge there, and it's really meant to go in his left hand. As you can see, his hands are, there's like the slot on the inside between his thumb and the rest of his fingers, so his sword can go in that hand. You can have him slicing up the Autobots, which he unfortunately never gets to do. So he is a pretty cool character. It would have maybe been nice to see him, or like a backstory for him or something for one episode before he got torn apart by Bumblebee. But there's that if you want it. It's very nice. Pull out the sword, and let's give him his Gatling gun. So to begin, I like to just kind of pre-articulate some of his joints here. Just get this arm kind of as inwards as possible, like that. Hinge at the wrist, then go ahead, come to the underside, and attach the gun here. And then you don't really have to do much for the other hand to get him to hold it. Let's get that arm up there. The instructions do actually give you a few pointers on how to get him to hold his gun. But, just real quick posing, it isn't very hard. He's got so many points of articulation, you can pull this off, no problem. He looks pretty awesome right there. Very nice. And then for weapon storage, of course, he has some ports on the back that you could combine all the weapons and store them back there if you would like. But let's get into some size comparisons. Look at that. That looks pretty sick. All right, so here we have first edition Bumblebee, first edition Optimus Prime, first edition Starscream, and APC Toys Demonic Whisperer Soundwave. And I think he definitely fits in with these guys. All of them have the more anime stylization that you can see in them, but he kind of matches it. They all have the narrow waist. He's got the narrow waist. I think overall it works pretty well. He is a little bit more boxy than them, but definitely fits in pretty well and is, I think, in my opinion, much better than the original release of Skyquake that came out around the time of these guys. I think it was in a Robots Disguise line, and that was just more gimmicky and less fun, honestly. So here is that assortment. I think, the most important ones probably being, when he comes out and Starscream frees him with the Shard of Dark Energon, he definitely dwarfs Starscream, looks down upon him, and I think that matches pretty well in terms of size. And of course, Soundwave is about the same size as Starscream, so you get that size comparison going there. And then with regard to the Autobots that defeat him, Bumblebee is definitely a lot smaller than him, which is accurate, of course. And then Big OP is still smaller than Skyquake. Skyquake is one huge dude, so I think this definitely fits in pretty well with all of the characters that we saw in that episode. And I think you could certainly add this legacy guy to your, 2007, 2011-ish Transformers Prime and Robots in Disguise collection. I think, whether or not you collect the new legacy guys, but if you're a Transformers Prime fan, this is definitely a must pick up figure to add to your line, as he definitely certainly completes the figures that we have for Transformers Prime. And then also I did go ahead and store his Gatling gun on his back, and I just use like one of the side ports. You can see it looks pretty good. It almost looks like it's slung sideways, so that is pretty cool. Just to showcase that feature as well. So there are those comparisons with your cast from the episode of Skyquake. I hope this helps you, make this decision if you're on the fence about getting this figure. Overall, very solid quality figure, very heavy, definitely worth the price point that he warrants. My only problem with him is, that little transformation issue, but as you can see, even if you flop him around, he's not coming dislodged, so that's good. You just have to, figure it out a little bit, and it all stays together pretty well. Very nice figure, fantastic figure. I think one of my favorites from the Legacy line, certainly my favorite Prime Universe figure thus far. If you like this video, please remember to leave a like down below, and if you're not a subscriber yet, please remember to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.